Welcome to the world of inspirational women in history. So, remember, we're doing a whole series on these, and every week we're going to have a new video with three new amazing women. So, let's get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Miss Bree. I'm an educator, a farmer, an illustrator, a singer, and a very proud grammar nerd. Thank you. So, welcome to the farm school. All right, so first up, we have Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was born in 1933 in Brooklyn, New York, to a working class Jewish family. Her mother, Celia, deeply valued education but never really had the opportunity to attend college herself. She poured her dreams into Ruth, encouraging her to excel academically. Tragically, her mother died of cancer the day before Ruth graduated high school. That loss profoundly shaped her. Ruth carried her mother's ambition and strength with her into every classroom she entered. At Harvard Law School, she was one of only 9 women in a class of 500 men. On her first day, the dean asked the women to explain why they were, quote, taking a seat from a qualified man. Well, Ruth did not back down. She quietly and steadily proved that she belonged. Before she became a Supreme Court justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg strategically fought cases that dismantled gender discrimination laws. As co founder of the ACLU Women's Rights Project, she argued 6 landmark cases before the Supreme Court and won 5 of them. Her strategy was brilliant. Instead of demanding sweeping change all at once, she carefully selected cases that exposed how gender discrimination hurt both men and women. One famous case involved a widower denied Social Security benefits because the law assumed only women were caregivers. By showing discrimination harmed everyone, she built constitutional protections step by step. She believed in incremental, everlasting change. Now, in 1993, she was appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Over time, she became known for her powerful dissents, especially when the court limited voting rights or weakened protections against discrimination. Her dissent in the Ledbetter case, involving unequal pay, led directly to the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. She famously wrote dissents she hoped would become future majority opinions. Late in life, she became a cultural icon known as RBG, but she never saw herself as a celebrity. She saw herself as a worker, committed to justice, precision, and equality under the law. She once said, "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." What an amazing woman. All right, next up, we have Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was born in 1897 in Kansas at a time when women were expected to live quiet, predictable lives. But Amelia was different, of course. As a child, she climbed trees, built homemade roller coasters, and kept a scrapbook of newspaper clippings about successful women in male dominated careers. Her life changed in 1920 when she attended an air show and took her first airplane ride. She later said, "As soon as we left the ground, I knew I had to fly." Within months, she was taking lessons, and within 2 years, she had bought her own plane and set an altitude record for women pilots. She wasn't just learning to fly, she was claiming space in a world that told women to stay grounded. In 1928, Amelia became the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean by airplane, though she was only a passenger at the time. The media celebrated her, but she quietly insisted that she hadn't truly earned the title yet. So, in 1932, she did it herself. Flying solo across the Atlantic in a Lockheed Vega, she battled freezing temperatures, mechanical problems, and exhaustion. But after nearly 15 hours in the air, she landed in Ireland. She became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, and only the second person in the entire history of the world after Charles Lindbergh. She didn't stop there. She became the first person, not just woman, to fly solo from Hawaii to California, one of the most dangerous routes in aviation at the time. But Amelia wasn't just a pilot. She co founded the 99s, an organization supporting women aviators. She designed practical clothing for working women. She lectured about independence and equality. She believed women deserved the same opportunities, both in the sky and on the ground. In 1937, Amelia set out on her most ambitious goal yet: to circumnavigate the globe. So, circumnavigate means to fly around, okay, to go around the entire globe, around the circumference. She and her navigator, Fred Noonan, flew a Lockheed Electra around the world, completing nearly 22,000 miles. On July 2nd, 1937, while flying over the Pacific Ocean near Howland Island, contact was lost. Her final radio message indicated she was low on fuel and searching for the island. Despite one of the largest search efforts in history, no confirmed wreckage was ever found. So, did her plane crash into the ocean? Or did she land on a remote island? The mystery endures. But perhaps that mystery is fitting. Amelia Earhart became larger than one flight. She became a symbol of courage, ambition, and the refusal to accept limits placed on women. Her legacy continues in every girl who looks up at the sky and thinks, why not me? Next up, we have Catherine the Great. Now, Catherine the Great was not actually born Russian. She entered the world in 1729 as Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, a relatively minor German princess. No one could have predicted that this young girl would become one of the most powerful rulers in European history. At just 14 years old, she was selected to marry the future Russian Emperor, Peter III. She moved to Russia, converted to Russian Orthodoxy, learned the language, and carefully studied Russian customs. She understood something critical. If she wanted to survive and thrive, she would need to adapt. Her marriage to Peter was unhappy and politically unstable. When he became Tsar in 1762, he quickly lost the support of the military and nobility. Catherine seized the opportunity. Backed by powerful allies, including members of the Imperial Guard, she orchestrated a coup. Peter was forced to abdicate and soon died under mysterious circumstances. And at age 33, Catherine declared herself Empress of Russia. She would rule for 34 years, longer than any other woman in Russian history. Catherine saw herself as a ruler of the Enlightenment, a movement emphasizing reason, science, and reform. She corresponded with philosophers like Voltaire and Diderot and sought to modernize Russia. She wrote a document called the Nakaz, or Instruction, proposing legal reforms based on equality before the law in opposition to torture. Though many of her reforms were limited in practice, the document signaled her desire to align Russia with modern European thought. Under her rule, Russia expanded dramatically, adding approximately 200,000 square miles of territory. She annexed Crimea from the Ottoman Empire and participated in the partitions of Poland, effectively removing Poland from the map for over a century. Catherine also invested heavily in culture and education. She founded the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, which remains to this day one of the world's greatest art collections. She established the Smolny Institute, the first state-funded higher education institution for women in Europe. She even set a public health example. In 1768, she publicly received a smallpox inoculation at a time when the practice was new and feared, encouraging millions of her subjects to follow. She ruled not only with ambition, but with calculated intelligence. And with that smallpox inoculation, she saved millions of her people's lives. Yet, Catherine's reign was not without contradiction. Like any other reign, despite her Enlightenment ideals, she strengthened the power of the Russian nobility, which led to the tightening of serfdom. Millions of peasants remained bound to landowners under harsh conditions. In 1773, a massive uprising, known as the Pugachev Rebellion, threatened her rule. A Cossack leader claimed to be her supposedly deceased husband, Peter III, and rallied peasants and soldiers in revolt. Catherine crushed the rebellion with force, reinforcing her reliance on noble support. Her personal life also fueled several rumors. She had a lot of different influential partners, but many of the more scandalous myths are entirely false. Catherine died in 1796 after suffering a stroke. She was succeeded by her son, Paul I, although she reportedly hoped to bypass him in favor of her grandson, Alexander. Today, historians remember Catherine the Great as a ruler of immense ambition, intelligence, and complexity. She expanded Russia into a European superpower and helped usher in what is often called Russia's Golden Age. She proved that power, even in the 18th century, could be seized, shaped, and wielded by a woman. So remember, when we look at these women, queens, scientists, activists, and artists, every single week, they lived in different centuries, they spoke different languages, they faced different challenges, but there's a thread that connects them all. There's just constantly things that keep showing up no matter when it is, over different centuries, different battles, different dreams. But each one has the same courage. Each one faced a moment when the world said, "You cannot do this." And each one answered, "Watch me." And they did. So, here's the most important part, is none of these women knew how history would remember them. They simply did what they believed was right. Okay, that is the thread. So, courage is not about fame, it's about conviction. Change is not dramatic always. Sometimes it begins with one question. And the thread continues because history is not finished. You're living it right now. And the next chapter is not yet written. So someone in this room, someone listening right now, might be the next name on that list. Okay? So the question that you must ask yourself all the time is, when your moment comes, what will you do? So I want you to take that and think about it. Thanks for coming, guys, and I will see you next week.